Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Byte clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Byte clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you if people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else? Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
Congratulations. You've connected with the Pulpit Perspectives podcast. Join Reverend Dr. Kent Lundy as he connects with pastors where they preach, literally at the pulpit of their church. It's a point of view with purpose and personality that informs and inspires with real life stories from great preachers you need to know. Your host is Reverend Dr. Kent Lundy. Let's join Kent at a pulpit with a fresh perspective from his guest preacher.
Hello and welcome to Pulpit Perspectives Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Kent Lundy. Pulpit Perspectives Podcast exists to create connections among clergy and their congregations. I'm standing in the chancel of Clay United Methodist Church in South Bend, Indiana, with their senior pastor, Reverend Brian Durand. Brian, welcome to Pulpit Perspectives Podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Well, it's great to be with you. Now, this is called Pulpit Perspectives Podcast, but we're not standing near a pulpit. Why is that?
Here at Clay Church, we have a pulpit. I speak with a music stand in the center of the room. It's sort of my theology, my understanding of interaction with the congregation. I don't want that separation. I want to be one of the group who is teaching and leading and walking together. And so we don't do pulpits. Every once in a long while, I'll wear a robe, but for the most part, want to be one of and still set apart for leadership.
There you go. That is a theological perspective that I can appreciate. Yeah. So how long have you been senior pastor at Clay United Methodist Church?
I am in my 10th year. So in July, it'll be a 10-year anniversary of serving here at Clay Church.
Okay. 10 years. Wow. Yeah. So what are you celebrating?
There is so much to celebrate right now. I am celebrating an energy, the Holy Spirit moving in this congregation. We've always had a heart to serve and be a community presence, embracing people in God's love. And that is happening in so many ways right now. It's just an exciting time to be in ministry here at Clay Church. Our food pantry is serving 1,000 people a month, some months in our community. We're the largest food pantry other than the Northern Indiana Food Bank in the county. We have ministry that kicked off last year that's getting ready to really go this spring and summer that will be helping elders in the community with repairs so that they can stay in their homes with disabilities or medical issues. We have Unity Garden that has grown into orchards this year, which has been a really great neighborhood connection. We have our Be Kind campaign, and we've done it now for 3 years. It runs during the election season and is just a reminder to our community. It's like we call it the Be Kind campaign. We put our campaign out while everybody else is putting an awful lot of tension and anger into the world. We put out this reminder to be kind. And we've got new partners this year. The United Way is on board. So we're really excited about putting that positive message at the core of our gospel out there as well. So lots of neat things happening.
You are celebrating a lot. Good for you. Wow. That is very exciting. So who nurtured your call to ministry?
My call to ministry began when I was in high school. And Pastor Scott Moon was my pastor at the time. And I didn't know then it was a call. I would not have called it a call, but he invited me to preach. I was liturgist once, and he's like, "You're really good at this." And then I was liturgist about every third so 4 times a year. I became a liturgist for the month at my little small town United Methodist Church in Missouri. And then when I recognized the call in my life, it was pastor at St. Luke's United Methodist Church, Dennis Floor. He was the youth pastor at the time. He told me I was going to get involved in ministry. He heard what I was doing at the time. He's like, "You're going to be on our youth ministry team." He says he asked, but he did not ask. He told me. And so I got involved, and I think probably even then he saw it too. I grew into it, and then he helped sort of navigate my way into vocational ministry.
Wow. Thank you. All right. So what do you do for fun?
For fun, I do ministry for fun, but I think outside of church life, I have to admit I love fantasy, crime kinds of both TV and books. So those are part of it. Part of fun now is I have a kiddo in college and a kiddo who's a freshman in high school, and so their events, orchestra, concerts, and encouraging my daughter's art and my son's love of computers has just been part of fun in life. And travel. I love to travel. My wife tolerates my love of travel and loves to be with me, and so that works out just great. Okay. And so any opportunity to travel is also part of fun in life.
So fantasy crime. Have you done crossovers into sermon series? Like do a fantasy / crime sermon series?
So 2 things, fantasy and crime. So not necessarily fantasy crime. I put those together. Fantasy, I needed an "and" in there. Fantasy and crime.
Okay.
So yes. Every once in a while, fantasy will make a reference, will come up in a sermon. I believe that there was a Game of Thrones reference once. I did tell the congregation that if you watch that, you might question whether your pastor should be watching this. Lord of the Rings appears every once in a while. We did Star Wars as sort of an entrance into a biblical series a few years ago. So every once in a while, I try not to impose my fantasy love on everyone.
Well, who knows? You might find allies in your congregation.
Certainly there are those who love
and certainly with the popularity of true crime podcasts now. I mean, a true crimes from the Bible sermon series.
That's an interesting, that could be fun. Yeah. I have thought about that I love these crime series on the major streaming services. I've never worked it in. I've always been like, I don't know how true crime relates to preaching, but that's true crime to the Bible.
True.
Okay. All right. Thanks again. I've got a head start on next year's sermon series preparation. We're ready to go. Okay.
I want to hear that sermon series. All right. So who or what keeps you humble?
Well, I think probably 3 things for me. Humility, I think for me is one of those really important. I think it's important value. I think it's one of my core important values. And 3 areas where I think I probably turn to stay humble. One is always having a team at the local church, whether it's staff parish or others, that speak to how we can grow and how I can grow. So I regularly, staff parishes, in my experience, tend to be sometimes really supportive and sometimes really pushing, and both of those are great. I've been blessed by really supportive staff parish. I find myself continuing to ask them, "Hey, how can I grow? How can I just that piece?" The second is my wife keeps me humble, and she doesn't she never says anything negative, but I know by her reaction if this was a good a good sermon or a good decision or not such a great sermon today. And I don't know that she would say that, but I probably appreciate her support enough to know that that's an important piece of our relationship, an important piece of my life, and remaining humble in ministry. And then I think probably the third area that keeps me humble is just the congregation, right? And not taking criticism to not being hurt by it, but by hearing in every response, for that matter, good and bad, being able to point to God and saying, okay, God, where am I representing you? Where am I failing to represent you? And how can I grow in sharing the love of Jesus? I think those are probably 3 areas of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you only had one preacher to listen to the rest of your life, you only get one preacher.
Only one.
Who would that preacher be that you would listen to the rest of your life?
Wow, I have to narrow it down.
Yeah.
I have to narrow it down.
Yes. I know it's not fair.
Only one person.
It's only one.
I think it's
a tough one.
It's one of those questions that I try and think who I listen to somewhat regularly now, as opposed to having been inspired by in seminary, but sort of having that core already. I have to admit, I'm a huge fan of Andy Stanley preaching. I think if I could only listen to one person right now, it would probably be Andy Stanley. And the reason is he continues in the sermons that I listen to, and so I drop in occasionally for inspiration for my own preaching, my own ministry. He continues to be highly creative and just a fantastic communicator. And so when I listen to him, I often get ideas for sermon series or ways to enlighten and teach from a text. And I receive ideas about how I might grow in my own presentation style and my own connection with the congregation.
Yeah. Andy Stanley. All right. Who are you, Mary or Martha?
Mary or Martha? I am probably this is going to sound like a political cop-out. I am somewhere in between. Before going into ministry, I was the one who had every detail of everything in life managed. So I wanted everything in place, and I was go. My first ministry appointment was in youth ministry. My first ministry role was in youth ministry. And I realized in youth ministry that you needed to be prepared. You had to be okay with everything going off the rails, and how to lead and just be present when nothing was going according to the plan, and figure out how to find peace and be present with Jesus in the midst of that. And so I think today I probably vacillate between. I am probably more so let's just sit at the feet of Jesus and see what the Holy Spirit does, then let's make sure that all the plans are in place. I will say this, because my staff team, this fantastic team at Clay, I think would say this. Brian tends to run out on the bridge and begin building it step by step, as opposed to getting it built before he steps out on it. I think that's probably a safe statement.
Okay. All right. So if you're okay, so pretend with me, you're going to go axe throwing.
Okay.
All right. You're going to go axe throwing, and you can bring one person from the Bible.
One person from the Bible to go axe throwing with me.
Who would you bring from the Bible to go axe throwing with you?
Okay. How competitive am I? Do I want somebody who I don't think is going to be very good at it so I can win? No. No.
Right.
If I could choose one person from the Bible to go axe throwing with, this may sound odd, but I've had this question before about, like, who would you like to converse with? I would go axe throwing with Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Mary, the mother of Jesus. Okay.
Yes.
Say more.
And the reason I would go axe throwing with Mary, the mother of Jesus, sometimes when I'm preaching here at Clay, from right here, I will say something like, I wish we could have more conversation. In fact, I just did it this Sunday. I'm like, I want to ask Luke a couple questions about why he recorded this story this way, right? And I find more of those with Mary than any other character in the Bible. There are just pieces of the story that we don't get, right? Because the focus is what the gospel writers needed to focus on with telling us the story of Jesus. And there are just conversations I'd like to have about parenthood and what it was like to raise Jesus. And maybe that's a parent's question. There are questions I'd like to ask about hopefulness and how much, I mean, obviously she had a sense of who Jesus, or she knew who Jesus was, but, and how she lived with that, and how much Jesus told her about what was to come, and how she lived with that, and what happened after Jesus was gone, and her perspective on that. So that the person I would choose, I think, is Mary. It has nothing to do with the axe throwing, right? I mean, it's the conversation you have while you're doing something fun.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But just imagine with me for a minute, how is she at axe throwing?
Well, she lived in a time when the family had to fend for itself. So I think she's okay. I think she could probably take me an axe throwing, because I don't even chop wood. And my guess is that, around the house, she was doing things that today we don't have to do to lift, to care. I'm going to guess she can probably throw. And her husband's a carpenter, right? And so she's been around tools and things like that. Yeah, I'm thinking she's pretty good at axe throwing.
Okay. I'm picturing her business card. Mary, mother of Jesus, and axe throwing champion.
Axe throwing champion of the world, or something, right? Yes. I want to say, I mean, this is going to sound a bit to the unholy side, but I picture her, sometimes people say when you go axe throwing, right, that to get just the level of intensity you need, you just think about like your anger and you throw, and I've got her picturing like the Roman Empire, and hurling those axes.
Picture of Caesar,
right? Picture of Caesar on the wall, and she's like hurling that axe and taking it out. Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Maybe another sermon series.
axe throwing with blank.
Yes.
And we can put the characters. Okay, now I've got 2 sermon series for next year.
Okay,
yeah, very good.
I'm here to help.
I appreciate that. These are good.
Yeah.
These are good.
So what is your favorite church season?
Probably my favorite. That's hard to answer too. Advent and Lent are both right there. Probably I would say Lent. And the reason I love Lent is, I mean, probably twofold. One, Lent is still the season where people put their faith first, whereas Advent gets so culturally wrapped into everything going on in the world. Lent is that time when people are they're ready to dig in and search. And so they'll sign up for Bible studies, and they're open to try different spiritual disciplines and grow with Jesus. And so it's just this, I feel like it's a really rich time in the church for us to reflect on who we are. It begins with Ash Wednesday, which is one of my favorite services because of the reminder of our humanity and our need for God. I believe it's just the liturgy. You can do a lot with the liturgy to that day to really help us own who we are and how much we need God. And then you have this whole season to explore that. And Holy Thursday is one of my second favorite services of the year. Easter's probably my favorite, but Holy Thursday, where we here at Clay Church almost every year, we do different things to help us sort of relate to that Last Supper. But most often we gather at tables ourselves. And I love that sense of picturing ourselves at the table with Jesus and carrying and holding on to that image. So I think that Lent is probably my favorite season overall in the church. And then if I had to follow it, I'd said Advent earlier, but it might be Easter. That sense of, the great 50 days of Easter and mission, that sense of now we've hold this truth. We're doing a sermon series here at Clay Church right now called Go. We're exploring the book of Acts. And that sense of we're witnesses. We're now the witnesses. Let's go really fits with this congregation's culture and vision and all of our mission. So, yeah.
My mind went back to when you're talking about Lent, that certainly there are lots of crimes in Lent.
That's also true. So we can do a true crime Lent series.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Lent.
Yeah.
Lent. That's interesting to think about Lent from a preaching perspective. Lent is one of those seasons where, so my understanding of sermon series is the Bible always drives the series, right? And I guess I would hope most all would say that, but then the doorway to that scripture can be some cultural reference, right? So when we do a Star Wars or animated movies, those become the doorway, and so we choose the themes, and then we find something in culture that allows us to enter and explore that theme. So true crime would be really fun doorway, and it could work at Lent, but Lent is that season where we almost never use some cultural reference. We start with, we're going to explore this part. So I'd have to play with that. I have to play with that just because of the way the way that I've typically designed Lenten series.
Yeah, no, I'm not telling you.
Oh no, I know. It's fun to think about though.
Like who murdered Jesus? Who done it?
Right? Yes.
We got a crime on our hands, people. We got to figure this out.
What are we gonna?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Even that question would be it's not a question we often. I mean, we assume we just know the answer as opposed to thinking about all the things that happened and how they came about. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't tell me we were gonna help design sermon series.
Well,
if we could do 10 more, I'll be set for next year. We'll be ready to go.
You'll be good for year 11.
Right.
So what do you hope your fellow clergy know? What do you hope your fellow clergy know?
I hope that my brothers and sisters who serve the church know what a gift this calling is, and sense God's presence in the good and in the challenge. I hope that they know that as hard as it gets, it is seed planting, and sometimes we don't get to see the fruit, and that they know to turn and hold on to the promise of Jesus, and that call as they first discovered it in their lives to get through those difficult times. I think I don't know that ministry is ever not challenging. I think the challenges of the last few years, I've watched so many clergy brothers and sisters really struggle, and my heart goes out and my heart breaks. And I hope we as clergy, I mean, for others and for myself too, I hope that we would know that we will be there for each other, and then follow through on that and be there for each other in the midst of that. I hope they know that standing in a church on a Sunday and proclaiming the word of God and the love and grace, the indescribable love and grace of Jesus, is an incredible gift, and to keep doing it. Yeah.
What a powerful blessing to bestow upon your colleagues. Thank you. Yeah. So last question. You get 3 words. I'm going to hold you to it. 3 words. 3 words that encapsulate your hopes and dreams for your future here at this church, at Clay Church, as senior pastor. So when you think about Clay Church, you think about being their pastor, one of their pastors. What 3 words come to mind when you think about your future together?
I think the 3 words are love, dream, and inspire.
Love, dream, and inspire.
Love. I'm thinking about those words. Do I get to change one if I'm not quite
sure?
Not sure that's quite the word.
It's a great
I don't need to change it. I don't need to change it. Yes, love, dream, and inspire.
Is that your final answer?
That is my answer. That is my final answer.
You're gonna lock it in.
That is my final answer.
Love, dream, and inspire. I like it.
Yeah. Yes.
That will be my hope and prayer for you as you continue to live into this calling here at Clay Church as senior pastor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
Reverend Brian Duran, thank you for being a guest on Pulpit Perspectives podcast.
Well, thank you for the invitation and for doing this. I think it's wonderful to connect with each other in this way. I look forward to hearing the other ones.
Yes.
I don't like hearing myself, so I may not listen to this one.
Okay.
But
Well,
I look forward to hearing all of them.
Yes.
Look forward to hearing all of them.
All
Thank
right.
you, Ken.
You're welcome. So Pulpit Perspectives podcast exists to create connections among clergy and their congregations. I've been coming to you from the sanctuary of Clay United Methodist Church in South Bend, Indiana, standing here with their senior pastor, Reverend Brian Duran. I'm Reverend Dr. Kent Lundy signing off for now.
There you have it, a fresh perspective from the pulpit with a great preacher. You know you want to hear more. You can do just that by connecting with Pulpit Perspectives with Reverend Dr. Kent Lundy on Apple Podcast and Spotify, where you can like and follow the podcast. What's more, you can spread the good news about Pulpit Perspectives in your church and with your neighbors. Plan now on joining Kent at the pulpit, where you'll meet another great preacher on Pulpit Perspectives.